Welcome to your academy, and in this video we'll be looking at the chapter 1 of business law, which is for ATS1 students. Okay, it's an ATS1 paper, chapter 1 of business law. So this chapter 1 is titled Sources of Law. That's the title, Sources of Law. Okay, and this particular video that you're watching is one of the 3 parts of chapter 1, okay, because there are 3 points in chapter 1. We have the introduction and definition of law. The second part is the sources of law itself, and the third part is the expansion, okay, expansion of each sources, okay, like the constitution, like the legislation, like the received English law, the customary law. Each sources is explained. So the first part, which is the introduction and the meaning of law, is what we are going to deal with in this video. The second video under chapter 1 is going to be the sources of law, okay, the source of law, okay, and the third video is going to be the the in-depth understanding of each source of law. Okay, all right, so let's start with the introduction. But before the introduction, we need to look at what is the learning objective of chapter 1, because it's very important. Number 1 is to define law. Number 2 is to explain the purpose of law. Number 3 is to identify the laws of Nigeria as Nigerian candidates, and the laws of Ghana as Ghanaian candidates. The fourth one is discuss the ambit of the laws of Nigeria. The fifth one is to state and explain, okay, the forms of legislation in Nigeria. And lastly is to differentiate the approaches to law interpretation. So we are starting with the introduction. Just like I told you, this video is for introduction and the meaning of law. So introduction. So the introduction now. Let's start with the introduction. Legal issues confront us all the time, So to understand, this is just an introduction, letting us know what we are going to come across, why we are coming across all of these things in this chapter. So the first thing said is that legal issues, confront us all the time. So some legal knowledge, because of these legal issues, legal knowledge is therefore important for everyday living. So legal knowledge is important, okay? Because of the legal issues, legal knowledge is what is important for everyday living. So law ensures, now we are now looking at law itself, okay? Law ensures orderliness in the society, and every human activity is regulated by what? By law. And that is the reason why law ensures what? Orderliness in the society, because the human activity is being regulated by the law, and that's why we have order and we have orderliness in the society. So in order to become a functional person in the community, we need to appreciate the laws that regulate the various activities we engaged in. There are so many activities that you engage in, and there are law that guides the activity. So if you are driving now, we have laws that guides what? Driving. Okay, we have laws that guides driving. Okay, if you are the one that is into sports, we have laws that guides those kind of sports. All right, so the purpose of this chapter is to explain law and its role in the society. That's number 1. The chapter is also to identify the major classification of the laws of Nigeria and their sources. So those are the two purpose of this chapter: to explain law and its role in the society, and to identify the major classification of the laws of Nigeria, okay, and their sources. Now back to law again. So to avoid chaos and ensure orderliness, every human grouping must have rules and regulations that guide behavior. So we are still referring back to what we said before. So the development of law and how the laws are applied are discussed in this chapter. So the development of law and how the laws are applied is discussed in this chapter. Finally, the chapter examines the various ways by which laws are interpreted to give meaning to them. So that's what the introduction is all about. Now to the second part of this video, which is the meaning of law. So this is talking about what law means, the definition of law. Okay, so let's understand what is written, then we can now coin our own definition. So law basically consists of a body of rules and regulation. That's point one, number one. Okay, law basically consists of what? Body of rules and regulations. Now, these rules and regulations, the number one that we talked about, are usually designed to regulate what? Human conduct in the society. Human conduct in the society. Point two, human conduct in the society. This is point two, human conduct in the society. All human behavior is shaped in one way or the other by various laws. It's still talking about the human conduct in the society. So law, once made, is meant to be obeyed. But it is discovered that people may not voluntarily want to meet the expectations of the law. As a result, there may be the need to introduce some element of sanctions. The need to introduce the element of sanctions against acts of what? Act of violation or defiance, so as to ensure compliance with the law. Now, if you are being asked in the examination, what is law? How will you define law? There are three crucial points in the definition of law. The first one is what? The body of rules. So you can say law can be defined as body of rules and regulations that regulate human conduct in the society, which is backed by sanctions against act of what? Act of violation or defiance. If you have that, your mark is there already. Bam. Okay, that is what? That is the definition. That is the meaning of law. Law basically consists of body of rules and regulations that guides human behavior in the society, which is backed by some element of sanction against act of what? Act of violence or defiance. If you have that, you are good to go. So I believe you understand what this video is all about. We've talked about the introduction, what this chapter is all about, and also examine the meaning of law. And I believe if you are being asked what is law, you can define law in your own term and still have your full mark, having what? Inputting the necessary elements in the definition of law. So that is all for this video. See you in the next part.